Hello everyone and welcome to this side event in the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, Ecoship, a transition model for decarbonising the maritime sector. And this is taking place as part of biodiversity, ocean-based mitigation and adaptation. My name is Karen Hallows and I'm an international coordinator at Peaceboat. And I would like to thank you all for joining us here today. I'd also like to express our great appreciation for all the organisers of the Virtual Ocean Pavilion and all the hard work that's gone into everything that's been connected with the pavilion during COP27 and even before. To tell you that this event is being recorded, so if you're also able to watch it later. And if you have any questions for the speakers, we're using the Q&A function in the webinar. So please write them in the Q&A box and we'll try to answer as many questions at the end of the event. And this event will go on for the next hour. So we're happy to have you with us for the next hour. So as I said, this event will be focusing on the decarbonisation of the maritime sector and showing Ecoship as a transition model for how this can be done. And we're going to be hearing today from 4 speakers on this topic. We have Yoshioka Tatsuya, who is the founder and director of Peaceboat and Ecoship. We also have Khadija Stewart, who's an Peaceboat Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador and founder of EcoVibes. We'll be joined by Norbert Craig, who is Senior Vice President and Regional Manager for DNV Maritime in Greater China. And also we'll be hearing from Gavin Allwright, who is the Secretary General of the International Windship Association. So we hope that we're going to have an interesting and stimulating session for you. And we look forward to hearing from all of our panelists today. So this event is being organized by Peaceboat. Peaceboat is a Japan-based international non-governmental organization with special consultative status with UN Ecosoc. It was established 39 years ago by Yoshioka Tatsuya, who we'll be hearing from just shortly. And Peaceboat organizes 3 global voyages for peace and sustainability annually, with a total of 3,000 passengers on board a large passenger ship. And you can see our current ship here, Pacific World, in the slide. We've had more than 70 voyages circumventing the globe, with 40 regional voyages sailing across the oceans and seas. We sail in the Northern Hemisphere, the Southern Hemisphere, visiting ports all over the world and crossing our oceans and seas. We live on the ocean. The ocean is a part of who we are at Peaceboat. And as a committed campaigner for the UN Sustainable Development Goals, our ship actually sails with the SDG logo on the side of the ship, which you can see when we pull into port. It's a very visible symbol of what we represent. As we sail the world, we hold lectures, seminars, and workshops on board. The ship is a space for experiential learning. In the ports we visit, we have study programs and exchange programs with local communities, as well as events on board, such as here you can see UN World Oceans Day, the official UN reception being held in New York City when the ship was docked there in 2019. And through our many years of organizing global voyages and visiting coastal communities, in particular, small island states, we've learned firsthand from communities on the front line of the ocean and climate crises about how these crises are affecting on a daily basis these communities, families, livelihoods. And we established the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program for youth from small island states to bring about capacity training and to share the voices of youth from small islands on the front lines of the crises. And we'll hear a bit more about this later. So we've been carrying on our activities on chartered cruise ships, but those cruise ships have been quite conventional. And while we're proud of our programs, we've been dreaming of a day when we could sail using a more sustainable ship. And as these options were not available, we set out to have the greenest cruise ship in the world, Ecoship, which would be custom built for our needs. In the GA here, you can see clearly, sorry, previous slide again. You can see clearly the solar panels, which cover 6,000 square meters, as well as the sails, retractable sails, which we'll hear their symbolic and physical importance more about shortly. We took a whole system integrated design approach to the project. We gathered world experts on naval architecture, marine engineering, renewable energy, energy efficiency, maritime law, biomimicry, biophilia for an Ecoship design charrette in Hamburg, Germany. This multidisciplinary charrette approach had never been applied before to the cruise industry. And the innovative outcomes of this form the basis of Ecoship specifications. Next. And you can see here the general characteristics of Ecoship, the size, the length, the breadth, the draft. The ship is larger than our current ship. We have current ships that have a capacity, until now we've had a capacity of 1,000 passengers, but this will be 2,600. So as we expand with Ecoship, we're also expanding our project. And the number of cabins, 790. So this is the general specifications for Ecoship. I'd like now to show you a video to give you an idea about Ecoship before we move to our first speaker, Norbert, who will be talking about the maritime industry in general. So first, if we could show the video. So that gives you a glimpse and an idea about this exciting project that is Ecoship. The maritime transport accounts for 3% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and cruise ships represent 1 to 1.5% of marine transport. So it's a small percentage, but it's a very visible aspect, something that people see a lot in ports. And international shipping was not actually included in the Paris Agreement goals, but the International Maritime Organization had made a commitment to tackle the problem and came up with a strategy that is now consistent with the Paris Agreement temperature goals. So I'd like to welcome now Mr. Norbert Krey, who will give us some perspective on the industry where we are at the moment. Norbert is the regional manager for the DNV Maritime in Greater China and responsible for overseeing, strengthening and growing DNV's maritime business in Greater China. He's a naval trained architect, and we're very honored to have him as part of the Ecoship team. DNV is a strategic partner of Ecoship and a key supporter of the project, and we're very grateful for that support. Norbert, it's a pleasure to have you with us here today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Karen, for the nice introduction. And actually, as you say, I'm more or less already a member of the Peace Boat team. And when Rachel asked me a while ago whether I am available for joining this panel, I think I said immediately yes, because Ecoship is a very good sustainable shipping solution. And for sure, sustainability in shipping is right now one of the hottest topics in the maritime industry these days. And as I said, Ecoship for sure, with all its visionary features and technologies, is an excellent example for a sustainable solution in shipping. And you mentioned it, sustainability is important, and it's also important that we as a class look into this topic. And since a couple of years, actually, DNV, we produce our so-called Maritime Forecast 2050. And here we look a bit into the future of shipping and also into sustainable solutions. And I guess you all know the maritime industry will go through a period of rapid energy and also technology transition that will have a more significant impact on cost, asset values, and also earning capacity than many earlier transitions. And presently, nearly 3% of the world's energy demand and 70% or 7% of the world's oil is consumed by ships, mainly by international cargo ships. And by 2050, we assume that the dominance of oil in the fuel mix will have been displaced by low or even zero carbon fuels like ammonia, hydrogen, or other electro-based fuels such as methanol. And driving this fundamental fuel switch are the IMO targets, actually, which call for a 50% absolute reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from 2008, which is the baseline, to 2050. And our forecast actually assumes that a mixture of improved utilization and energy efficiencies combined with a massive fuel decarbonization, we will see this goal should be met. And this is for sure a good news. On the other hand, decarbonization is no longer just a top priority for the IMO. Also, regional and national lawmakers are actually demanding a quicker energy transition. And driven by a changing climate of public opinion, also financiers and charterers do actually the same right now. So ship owners are already experiencing increasing pressure to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and footprint of the maritime transport. And no doubt there we are heading for carbon zero, but it's all still a long way to go. And there exists actually also no silver bullet solution. So it's not too easy to really reduce the carbon footprint significantly by 2050. And for ship owners, the big question these days is really, what is the, let me say, neutral future for the future? There are actually not really one answer which fits all. And when we looked into our maritime forecast, it shows that about 20% of the current new builds ordered today have alternative fuel systems, with LNG, for example, or some are looking also now already into methanol. This is only kind of, I would say, positive uptick, but still, I would say 20% is not sufficient. So there's a big room for improvement necessary to really reach the goals. And I would say the IPCC declared a code red for humanity, and with the publication of its climate change report showing that our Earth may warm to an average of 1.5% by 2040 or earlier, so we have to be far sooner than previously expected. And actually, there's also no time to waste. Inaction is not an option. The challenge in front of us is huge, but the incentive to transform couldn't be greater. It's the very future of our industry and society. So the scene is set for the maritime renaissance, how we call it in DNV. And except for the electrification underway in the ferry segment, the alternative fuels are currently still mainly fossil-based and are dominated by LNG. There will be a demonstration projects for onboard use of hydrogen and also ammonia by 2025, paving the way for zero carbon ships, and these technologies will, according to our estimates, be ready for commercial use in roughly 4 to 8 years. Safety, for sure, is a prerequisite to be successful and timely introduction of new fuels such as hydrogen and ammonia. A range of new technologies are emerging, and here we also look into fuel cells and also wind power. And when we look into the wind-assisted propulsion systems, then we see here actually a great revival, and Ecoship also will focus on the wind as an alternative propulsion systems, and ships using wind as a source of energy. Again, wind propulsion gains momentum for the purpose of reducing emissions to counteract the climate change. And the big differentiator to the ancient vessels is that these systems are more efficient and automated. Hence, they are eliminating the requirement for additional crew, which is, I think, also important for every ship owner to keep the cost on a moderate level. And real-life applications show significant savings of up to 10%, but we expect much more. Additional energy can be reaped with large-scale installments. And our expertise in DNV on wind propulsion actually is more than 100 years ago. There was a former board member, his name was Friedrich Middendorf, who wrote already in those days a technical book about the design and construction of tall ship rigs. Today, DNV, we are involved in many R&D projects, and the first commercial application of wind propulsion system in merchant shipping will come soon. So our newly developed standard for wind-assisted propulsion systems defines here the technical requirements. And I also like to say a little bit about the Ecoship in general. So from the very beginning, Peaceboat and the DNV, we are working closely together. And I remember the good discussions, Rachel Armstrong, Yoshioka-san, we had actually in Tokyo, maybe it's 6-7 years ago. And we are really happy to support Ecoship. And I would say also, indeed, Ecoship is a forerunner, not only in the cruise industry when it comes to sustainable solutions in shipping, but I think in general. And the carbon footprint of the ship might not be zero, but it is a very forward-looking design, including clean recycling, which definitely is a step into the right direction to make shipping more green. Many technical features like wind propulsion, solar panels, batteries, etc., we may find later on other cruise ships or even merchant ships as well. So from that point of view, I would say Ecoship is really, let me say, one of the good examples to make shipping more green into the future. And we talk about wind-supported propulsion, and actually the sales of the Ecoship are an eye-catcher and an energy-saving device at the same time. And as I mentioned earlier, there's no option to wait, and it's good to see that Peaceboat dares to make shipping more sustainable. Personally, as I mentioned, I follow up the project quite closely, and I'm really impressed, I have to say, about the dedication of the whole Peaceboat team. It's always fun working with you, and I think we are coming day by day closer to make our dream. Let's say that the Ecoship will also be built and will come into service closer and closer. And DNV, as I mentioned also before, we are very much looking into this development and also supporting Ecoship and Peaceboat as much as we can. So this rounds up my small little, let me say, presentation or speech about Ecoship and more sustainable solutions in shipping. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Norbert, for those kind words about Ecoship, but also the perspectives on the industry as it's moving forward. Great to have your expertise with us today, and thank you for joining us. I know that you have to leave now, so thank you again for your time.
Thank you, my pleasure, and looking forward to see you again. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
We'll see you soon. Thank you. So we heard from Norbert as well, was talking about the importance of wind development, and even DMV, the world's leading classification society, has a 100-year history of dealing with working with wind propulsion. And obviously wind propulsion is not a new technology, but how it can be applied as a new technology, how it's being developed now and how it's being incorporated into new design, is something that is of great concern to our next speaker, Gavin Allwright. And Gavin is the Secretary General of the International Windship Association, which is a grouping of maritime wind propulsion companies and projects. And he will be, the IWSA is working to promote and facilitate the uptake of wind propulsion solutions, especially in commercial shipping. And Peace Boat is a proud member of the IWSA. We'll hear now from Gavin more about wind propulsion and what this means for the decarbonisation of the maritime industry and how far we still have to go. So if we could hear now from Gavin.
I'm going to welcome you officially to the decade of wind propulsion. And I'm going to talk about today just that aspect of the ships. And you'll actually see a rendition of the Peace Boat on this slide here. This is really about the decade of delivery for wind propulsion. So there's a lot of potential, and I'll give you a few insights into what's happening and what that potential actually is. But very quickly, an introduction to IWSA. We're an organization that was set up in 2014, and actually Peace Boat was one of our early members. And we started with 12 members. We're now over 130 around the world, as you'll see, quite centered in Europe at the moment, but rapidly growing in other areas too. And our work is to facilitate the uptake of wind propulsion and creating a level playing field for the development of those technologies. We very much align with both the International Maritime Organization's strategic direction and also the SDG 17. These are critical areas, and of course, wind propulsion, the impact of wind propulsion is very, very low. It's a zero emissions energy that is delivered to the ship free of charge for the lifetime of that vessel with no land-based infrastructure required. So it's really low impact. Other issues as well is that we're using this directly. There are actually 7 technologies that can be adapted, and the Peace Boat has actually taken on board the rigid sails with those solar panels, and that's a really impactful approach, bringing together 2 levels of primary energy that can be delivered to the ship. And wind propulsion as a retrofit system has the potential, or not the potential, can deliver 5 to 20% of a ship's energy, propulsive energy. Potentially, if you went with very large systems on smaller vessels, then up to 30%. But remember, these numbers are on motor vessel operational profiles. So this isn't really changing your ship to act as a wind ship, going and finding the wind. If you do that, then you can increase that amount as well. And an optimized new build, if you went really primary wind, so wind becomes your #1 source, there is potential to go higher than that. But that takes a radical rethink and changes in the designs of the vessel. Now, how does all this fit in at the moment? Well, we identify 3 main trends happening with wind propulsion, but also other low impact fuels, alternative zero emissions fuels, etc. First of all is that tweaking pathway, which is really reducing the impact of the current fleet by retrofitting. Then we have transition, and really your Peace Boat is really a part of that transition, of actually when we look at a new vessel, wind becomes a natural choice, and that's slowly gathering pace. I think that having Peace Boat in 100 different countries around the world will really impact that and show what is possible as well, which is very exciting. And then we have that transformation, which will take longer to do, but we're starting to see the seeds being sown for that transformation, where wind is actually the first choice, and the potential for 100% wind vessels in the future. And this is the way we look at it as a delivery system. If we're putting on optimized wind, we could get 20%, possibly higher, across the fleet of ships. Linking that with changes in activity, so improved crew training, virtual arrivals, speed reduction, weather routing, another 20% of the propulsive energy could be saved. Vessel optimization, putting air lubrication or reducing the engine power on new designs. I know that the Peace Boat follows, the sort of whale design around the hull. These kind of things can really optimize the vessel, reducing by another 20% what we need. And that starts to reduce these eco-fuels. And eco-fuels are going to take time to come through. Now, a lot of you are saying, okay, that's all great. Where are we today? Well, right now, we have 15 large ocean-going vessels. These are the large vessels. Another 20 plus small vessels. But with large vessels, another one is being fitted actually today, goes to the shipyard today. So this will be 16 very soon. And, excuse me, we are hoping that by Q1 next year, we'll have 20 vessels in operation. As you'll see, some of these have some wind assist on ferry cruise vessels. But the one category that's missing here is the large container ships, primarily because they have very little deck space. However, kites are one of the systems that is an off-deck system, so there is potential there as well. And where is this taking us? Well, the market forecasts, I can talk all day about what I believe will happen, but these are third-party estimations. By 2030, if everything is put in place, we could be looking up to 10,000 ships having some form of most likely retrofitted wind system on board. Now, that's going to take a lot of effort, pretty much doubling the number of installations every year going forward. But this was from the EU doing an estimation or a forecast. Taking that forward, in the 2050s, the UK government has forecast out to around 45% of the fleet, up to 40,000 ships. We think that's conservative. We think the entire fleet could be outfitted. But still, these are very good forecasts going forward. And a really exciting way of looking at this, and this is a thought piece that I wrote a few months ago, is if we were to roll out wind propulsion and make that choice to roll out wind propulsion across the fleet this decade, the savings that would accrue just with a 20%, so that's 20% saving from the wind and also changing the route, maybe reducing speed a little bit, increasing the amount of what wind can deliver. Actually, over the next 3 decades, that would save around $1 trillion worth of fuel. Now, that happens to be the number that is put on the IMO 2050, which is a 50% decarbonization target, and goes a substantial way to delivering on full decarbonization. So pretty much wind would pay for itself and then help dramatically to pay for the full decarbonization of the sector. And this is my last slide, but we like to call it a win-win-win situation. All of these companies are engaging at different levels with wind propulsion. So are we mainstream yet? No, we're not. We're not mainstream yet. It's going to take a few more years, a lot more vessels out there. But what I want to emphasize is that a lot of mainstream players are engaging here. And I think with a beautiful ship like the Ecoship plying the oceans and really sending that message that wind works, we will see many, many more companies, many, many more people embracing wind and embracing the future of wind propulsion. Thank you very much.
And that was Gavin Allwright, who's Secretary General of the International Windship Association. Unfortunately, not able to join us in person. We had this recording of his, gave us this recording of his presentation, and it was great to hear his insights into what is being done now in the industry and how far we need to go and how realistic wind propulsion is and how it can pay for itself. Economically realistic as well as technologically. So our previous speakers have given us the background of the maritime industry about where we are now. And it's also very symbolically important for the maritime industry as ocean users to be a key part of the to contribute so much to decarbonization, not only when we look at the figures about how much we need to reduce, how we need to be moving towards zero emissions, but as ocean users and looking at the climate and ocean nexus and how much the ocean, as we all know here at the Ocean Pavilion, is impacted by the climate crisis, that ocean users need to be seen to be contributing to that. And that sort of visual aspect is extremely important. So now we're going to be hearing from Yoshioka Tatsuya, who is the director of Ecoship. Yoshioka Tatsuya has been a leading figure in Japanese civil society for the past 30 years and has been active internationally in the fields of education, peace, and conflict resolution. Was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 2008 and has for the past several years been dedicated to the Ecoship project as a way to show that sustainability and peace are connected in such an important way, and producing Ecoship, which is the platform for Peace Boat's future voyages. So Yoshioka, I would like to hand over to you, and I believe that you also have some slides. So Yoshioka, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, everybody. That's I think maybe that you can start to have the kind of the image of the Ecoship. And I'm so happy to speak about this online session. And actually, I was in Sharm el-Sheikh that until the day before yesterday, actually. So, and I really felt that the enthusiasm of the people, especially something, the COVID situation is slowed down. And I think people is in person, we are meeting each other in Sharm el-Sheikh, and some kind of the energy is coming from there. I think that is always meeting each other and speaking each other, eating each other, and discuss each other, and to find a solution is always exciting. So, and I think that the Ecoship, already our Peace Boat itself is like that, but the Ecoship is more the actual venue is really achieve that the future sustainable society. This is the kind of the symbolic, the platform and venue. This ship is the Ecoship, and really real. Already we are finished that the final design. So at any time we can start to the construction. And but I really would like to emphasize that everybody recognize this shape, and also that shape, the aerodynamic, the shape, and the hinted from the whale, and aero and the hydrodynamic. Anyway, so and most remarkable part is this the solar sail, and this is the retractable, and this is of course that to use that wind propulsion, wind power to the propulsion, but at the same time that is this solar panel on the sail is making the energy. by sunshine. So can you go to the next slide? Yeah, this is a very recent render. And this part in the the glass dome is this is a real botanical garden. And this ship is not only just a new type of the propulsion or the solar panel, or not only that, that's a more comprehensively how the make the passengers, people on board can feel nature and also beauty of this planet. Next, please. Yeah, this is from the side and quite impressive shape, I think. Next, please. Yeah, I hope that can you imagine that the shape and this unique passenger ship will visit 100 countries every year, because that is a Peaceboat program. Peaceboat program is organizing the 3 times global voyage every year, and each the cruise will visit 30 to 35 the port and the country. So anyway, we are visiting nearly 100 countries every year. So this is also very important, how do you say, wow factor. This big passenger ship is bringing always big attention, getting the big attention, and from media or from local people, and at the same time introduce new technology and also possibility that what we can do for the ocean and also climate crisis. Next, please. Yeah, that is only this sail. If we calculate in a CO2, the deduction that the 20% that we can reduce of the CO2. Next, please. And this is a retracted the shape now, the position now, and this become the solar panel. You can see it. And this solar panel is all solar panel on board is the manage that the electricity for the lighting on board. Lighting on board also not so small amount. Please, next, please. And already I explained, this is a beautiful botanical garden. We were planning to put the olive tree they put in the center and as a symbol of the peace. Next, please. This one is a ocean view conference room. And one of the quite unique character is this room is the auditorium is not the conventional HVAC, the aircon system. Just this chair is the blow the cold air and cool down the only human body, not the air. It is also the remarkably reduce of the consumption, energy consumption. But at the same time, I have a very strong ambition, try to invite a COP conference in this ship, and this venue will be the best venue to really people start to discuss about that, how to protect this planet, because in front of them, the ocean and also beautiful this scenery of this planet is, they can see. I think that they cannot find innovative idea only just in a expensive hotel or conventional center or something like that. I think on board, on ocean is one of the best place. I believe so. Next, please. And this is the kinetic floor, the discotheque, the dancing floor. You can create electricity by dancing. Okay, that is a very small amount of the electricity, of course. And however, important is that people can learn about this kind of the lifestyle. In a many way, you can produce that the electricity, and also you can save the energy and enjoy the life. Next, please. And this is a smart meter, and each cabin has this meter, and the passengers can know how much energy they're spending by her or his lifestyle, and also water consumption also. So, and this is also something like the how to change the lifestyle is a crucial point of the to make this planet sustainable. So, and this ship itself is something like a small cosmos, small the planet, the sailing on the ocean. And during that time is people start to learn about their lifestyle and also how to change their lifestyle. Next, please. This is also very important and ambitious idea. The program, the Peace Boat, the cruise program is the around the world cruise. So that's why we can make we can commit a research of during the ocean going time to take the ocean water, and also when we visit the soil in the beach, or take the air, through that kind of the scientific research, we can really know about what's going on in this planet. I think already we are starting to discuss with a scientist organization or the universities, the expertise about the maritime research. Next, please. So, and this Ecoship can reduce that the 30% of the carbon dioxide that compared to the usual conventional passenger ship. Next, please. Of course, 30% is not enough. I'm not so satisfied at all. However, we need a concrete step, and we need a visualized project to try to go forward. So everything should be step by step. Of course, we have to hurry, but at the same time, very important point is a concrete project we have to realize together with the scientists and also industry people, daily architect, and we can change this civilization, the contemporary civilization, toward that quite destructive future. We can change. We can be the game changer of the direction of this civilization, and we can achieve sustainable and a peaceful world very near future. We have to do that for our children and the next generation and the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yoshioka-san. And those great insights and a clear explanation about not only the technology that is on board Ecoship with the sails and the solar panels, which is such a visual aspect of the Ecoship and such a powerful image when we're going into the ports, but also how important the role of the passengers on board, learning, contributing their own energy through the disco, learning about their own lifestyle. It's continuing with this experiential learning on board about changing people's lifestyles, the ship being part of the learning process. And we're going to be looking now, thank you, at how Ecoship is going to be used as a platform for Peace Boat's global voyages. So I already mentioned in the beginning that Peace Boat is currently carrying out, has been for the last 39 years, global voyages around the world, and we're currently visiting ports, and we're currently holding programs on board. And Ecoship, these programs will continue on board Ecoship. We'll have guest educators on board. We'll have programs in ports of call. It'll be a venue for international conferences. Yoshioka just mentioned now his dream of bringing discussions about climate change and the ocean climate crisis on board Ecoship to discuss those on the ocean. And one example, our next speaker is going to give you a more concrete example of how Peaceboat Ship is going to be used for education and advocacy. In 2017, at the UN Ocean Conference, Peaceboat launched the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program in collaboration with the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS. And this program brings young leaders from small island states on the front line of the ocean and climate crises on board Peaceboat Ship for capacity building and to bring their message to citizens and government representatives. And Khadija Stewart took part in the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program, the last one we had before the pandemic in 2019. And Khadija is joining us from Trinidad and Tobago in the middle of the night there. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to see you again and to have you with us in this webinar. So Khadija will be talking about her time on board and how this can be used as a springboard for youth and as an early ocean professionals. Khadija, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karen. And yes, it is 2 o'clock well, now after 3 o'clock in the morning, but I am always happy and excited and ready to lend my voice to Peaceboat. So with that, my presentation, I'm going to be talking about my time on board the ship and why it is such an important tool. So as Karen mentioned, I sailed on the Peaceboat in 2019 as part of the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program, and it was 8 youth present. So myself from Trinidad and Tobago, we had Montserrat, Palau, the Seychelles, Fiji, Singapore, Tuvalu, and St. Lucia. So all of us from small island developing states, or as we like to say now, large ocean nations. And let's start from the beginning. Right, so the 8 of us gathered in Malta and we sailed to, how much ports was it? So from Malta, we went to, wow, this was 2019, it was a while ago. But we went to Spain, Grenada, we went to Morocco, Tangier, Morocco, the Azores Islands, and then ended in New York. But I remember all of us meeting in Malta, being so very anxious and also very excited as what was in store for us. We had never done a program like this before, you know, life at sea, and all of us being youth, enthusiastic, very passionate about climate change and experiencing the impacts of climate change. We were just ready to lend our voice and to educate as much people as possible. And here in Malta, you could see like we went to the university, we met with ministers and really had the opportunity and the space to share our story and to discuss solutions and exchange ideas. So I mentioned the different ports we went to, and at each port we had different activities. As this picture that you see here was the most memorable one for me, which was when we stopped off at Morocco, and we had this massive SDG day where we visited a university in Morocco, and hundreds of students came out and we were able to once again share our stories, connect with them, understand how climate change is impacting Morocco, and then for them to understand how climate change is impacting us, discuss some of the different solutions that we're both deploying. And we also had an event on board the ship. And this was the first time I really saw the ship being used as a tool and a space to create knowledge sharing. We had how much? Probably over 100 young people on board, and we shared stuff on education and climate change, the importance of connecting small island nations to larger island states as it relates to climate change, and really interacting with students at the different ports. We did that at Grenada, and having something called a Talanoa dialogue, which is discussing basically the past, the present, and where you want to go as it relates to climate change and ocean conservation, and really and truly connecting with the science and some of the solutions happening in some of the ports that we visited, and how we could, you know, replicate that in our respective countries or regions. And with the program, we also had several guest speakers come on board, which to us was very impactful. So this picture shows Jeremy, who was the founder of Peace One Day, and Laura Hindelbird from the SDG Action Campaign. And we also had Brandon Levy from Sustainable Ocean Alliance. And they really connected the dots with us on some of the different SDGs. So, you know, we think about climate change and sometimes we have tunnel vision, but we don't really understand how that could affect peace and, you know, what that means from that perspective. And then Laura also sharing with us the different SDG action campaigns that were happening, how we could get involved, how we could develop our own campaigns, how we could really use some of these different tools, connect the dots, and really develop our skills to be agents of change. And Brandon is not in this picture from Sustainable Ocean Alliance, but he also really and truly, for me at least, helped connect the dots. And it's, I mean, quite strange to say as someone with a master's in climate change that I also had tunnel vision, but he really connected the dots with me on climate change and the ocean and how important that is, and the fact that we need to be discussing both in order to come up with solutions to tackle the problems that we are currently facing. And with that, apart from the guest speakers, there were several activities on board the ship itself, which to me was also very, very impactful. We had days where we would organize sessions on board the ship, once again, sharing our stories, educating some of the passengers about climate change, how it is directly impacting us in small island developing states, and how it is, you know, some of these solutions once again could be replicated, and what it means for us and our future, and why it is so important for us to share our stories and for people to connect with them. A lot of times there are a lot of scientific papers being published, or I mean UN reports, and those are great and they contain a lot of important information, but let's be real, who is going to sit down and read a 100-page document? Hardly anyone, right? You might read the executive summary at most, and you mightn't even get through that. So for us, sharing our stories and storytelling is a very powerful tool. So we had the space to do that. And as you see in the picture here, interacted with students. And I remember this day quite clearly. All of us were English speaking and the students were Japanese speaking, and there was a strong language barrier, but we were still able to connect. We were still able to get our messages across, and they were so keen to learn and understand more and understand how they could develop projects in their own hometowns and how they could connect with us even more to help really build that youth network and that youth movement in the ocean and climate space. And then there was, as Karen mentioned earlier, the reception on board the Peace Boat for World Oceans Day, which was absolutely memorable. I can't even remember how much guests we had on board, but it was really and truly an amazing space and an amazing event. Just seeing all the different stakeholders, all the different people passionate about the ocean and climate change, and who are willing to, you know, develop solutions, develop initiatives, come together in a common space to share that passion, to share that love for the ocean. We felt the energy like no other. And we had the opportunity to perform a cultural dance for the passengers, once again, connecting them to our culture, to our island life, island vibe that we have. And there was also a lot of special guests that came on board. As you could see, Dr. Sylvia Earle, Fabian Cousteau, and I was very sad that I was unable to meet them, because despite dancing and despite smiling in this picture, I was terribly ill at that time. But all in all, it was an absolutely amazing space. And I know for a fact that we truly cherished it, because once again, sometimes you think you're in this fight alone, but to see all the different stakeholders come together for a common mission, that was truly powerful. And Peace Boat does a great job at creating spaces for such things. And continuing with World Oceans Day, when we got to New York to celebrate World Oceans Day, we went to the United Nations for the opening ceremony, and I would never forget. I remember I had the opportunity to visit the UN headquarters in New York a few years ago, probably when I was around 18 or 19. And I told myself, you know, Khadija, one day you'll be back and you'll be speaking, but I had no idea that it would really happen. I just kind of put that into the universe, and then some time passed and I realized, well, that's not happening. So I put that to rest. And then there was the Peace Boat program, and it just so happens that we were ending in New York for World Oceans Day, and we had the opportunity to go to the United Nations headquarters, and absolutely phenomenal experience at the opening ceremony. April, who is from Fiji, who is on my right, your left, not too sure, right? But he had a chance to perform a cultural storytelling initiative at the UN headquarters for World Oceans Day, and it was truly impactful. And then there was also the side event that Peace Boat US organized, where I had a chance to once again speak to the people who were present and helping them identify their voice, their tools, their skills, and the power of finding your niche in this space, because it can be very much overwhelming. And to have that opportunity, like I said, I put it into the universe a few years ago without thinking it would happen, and it did. And as youth, we made an impact. And one of the things that everybody says whenever we would speak was that there's no doubt that when given a space, you know, that we use it effectively and very well. And Peace Boat does a great job at giving us spaces. And even though I talk about this program from 2019, we are not just youth ambassadors. It was not just a random program. We are literally a family, friends for life. I still speak with all of them. Just recently, I was in London with Gio, who is from St. Lucia. Elsie has been illustrating my children's book, who is from Palau. I've been in collaboration talks with APA from Fiji. You know, we really connected on a, I want to say a spiritual level, but it was so deep. And I think it was that common love that we have for the ocean, and the fact that we were all from islands and very much passionate, and having some of the shared experiences with the impacts of climate change and some of the things that we are seeing happen to our oceans, like coral bleaching, you know, pollution, etc. We are experiencing a lot of these same things, and that really brought us together. And well, spending time on the ship, there was really nowhere else for us to go, and no one else for us to speak to. So we would definitely build lifelong bonds. And like I said, this program ended in 2019, but here I am today in 2022 after 3 o'clock in the morning, still lending my voice to Peace Boat. And these pictures are from Lisbon at the UN Ocean Conference, which took place in July of this year. You know, it was not a one-off program. We have been getting the opportunity to lend our voice to different webinars, different initiatives. Just last year, or was that year before, we took part in a storytelling training. There's been a number of programs developed for us to help us continuously build capacity, continuously create spaces where we could share our stories, which is so important. And I know this whole session was on the technologies behind the Ecoship and the fact that we're gonna have things like solar and wind, etc. But in order to create a sustainable planet and to deploy some of these sustainable technologies, we need sustainable mindsets. We need capacity building programs. And that is what one of the programs like the Youth Ambassador, the Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador program did. It really helped mold the next generation of young ocean and climate leaders. And we could not have done that without having the space and access to the information, the tools, and the courage and the support provided by Peace Boat to really go out there and be agents of change. So for that, I know I am grateful, and I know several of the other youth ambassadors are also grateful, and they too are continuously lending their voice to Peace Boat initiatives. So with that, before I just keep going on and on and on about how much I love Peace Boat, I would end there, and thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you so much, Khadija. And since 2019, since you joined Peace Boat, you have been a force of nature and taking part in so many webinars, so many, even all through the pandemic. As you said yourself, you were there at the UN World Ocean Conference. You're now an ambassador for the Sustainable Ocean Alliance and the coordinator of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance in the Caribbean. And you have been working so hard, tirelessly, on this issue of the climate and ocean nexus together, raising awareness of the impact, the daily impact of the climate and ocean crises on large ocean states. So thank you very much for sharing your voices, sharing your experiences, and it's an honor for Peaceboat really to hear from you. And that's kind of what we really want to do, is just create a space to hear stories from the front line, for people to understand what is happening in communities around the world, what our future holds, and how we need to move in that direction. And this goes with the technology. As you said, this seminar today was focused on Ecoship as a model for the transition of the decarbonization of the maritime sector. And the technology we heard from Norbert, we heard from Gavin about the different fuels that are going to be used, about the impact of wind power, about solar power, the direction that the industry is taking, and then combining that with the software, the programs, the capacity building, understanding how this technology works. And that combination of both the technology, the research about what the ocean is undertaking. As Yoshio mentioned, the ship will be going around and taking samples. We'll have a ferry box on board to take samples of how the ocean is being impacted. All this combined is what our project of Ecoship is about, and it's a step in the right direction. And we'll thank you very much for everybody that's joining this project with us. It's a movement, and we'd like you to join in that movement with us. We unfortunately run out of time, but if there are any, and I don't see any questions in the question box, but if you have any questions about Ecoship, about Peaceboat, then please do reach out to us, email or social media, and we'll be happy to talk about how we can work together. I'd like to thank again the speakers that we had with us, Yoshioka, Khadija, Norbert, and Gavin. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank especially the Ocean Pavilion organizers for all their hard work in putting together this fantastic pavilion. And I hope that everybody has a chance to see around the pavilion. We also have a booth. Thank you very much. We have a booth for Peaceboat Ecoship, so you can check out more information there. Visit our booth in the Virtual Ocean Pavilion. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody, and close the webinar here.